when it comes to estate planning, there are several key documents that most people end up using to set up to make the transition, whether they're passing away or have become incapacitated, to make those make that process as simple as easy as it can be. There's certainly always still lots of challenges when it comes to those, but at least let's make the legal side fairly straightforward. And one of the main documents that a lot of folks use is what's called a trust. And a trust is in essence a document that helps with the estate planning process. And so the first thing when it comes to a trust is a question: what is a trust? A trust is a legal document, so it's just a packet of words basically. But in essence, a trust is creating its own entity. It's almost like a business organization of how to operate regardless of human input. Basically it's a guiding document on how things should be done. Now, a trust is generally it's set up to guide how the grantor, the person that's creating the trust, how they want things to happen upon their passing or upon their incapacitation. And so that may be as simple as, the I love you trust, which is basically goes to goes from to your spouse and then goes to your children and then to their children and so on. But it also can cover a lot more complex situations too, especially if there's second marriages or estranged children or spendthrift children, all of that. But in essence, it's a trust is a document to explain how you want your wishes to be done. So it sounds similar to a will, but there's some key differences between a will and a trust, and we'll talk about those. The second aspect of a trust is it revocable or irrevocable? And so revocable means it can be changed. So you can make changes to the trust document, and sometimes they'll call this a living trust because changes will happen over time. Generally, it's suggested to review your estate planning documents every 3 to 5 years because life can change and life can happen, right? So a revocable trust allows one to go in and make changes. Maybe your Aunt Susie passed away, and so you don't want to leave her any money anymore, or your child is now married and has their own children, so you want to update that and all of that. So a revocable trust, you can make changes to that as you go on. An irrevocable trust, now there are irrevocable trusts, and so what that means is once you create that document, it is set in stone, it is signed, sealed, and delivered, and you cannot make any changes to that document. And the purpose generally with those irrevocable trusts are really when it comes to tax planning for higher net worth people, generally in the 10 12 or $1 million or more net worth. We start to look at some of these irrevocable trusts because there's special tax considerations associated with them, both while you're living and upon passing, that may come into play. And so you want to understand, is it a revocable or irrevocable trust? Because that matters drastically on your ability to make changes to it on an ongoing basis. The third thing there are several common misconceptions when it comes to a trust, from how much money one needs to be able to create a trust, to even things like tax savings. A lot of times when we're talking about trusts, the average person is creating a trust. It's not created really. Generally, a revocable trust is not created for tax planning purposes. It's really just created to help avoid the probate process and to make things simple upon passing. And that's a common misconception, is people think, oh, well, this revocable trust is going to save me taxes. No, it doesn't save anything on taxes. And in fact, if done improperly, it can cause taxes, especially when it comes to retirement accounts. And naming a trust as a beneficiary on a retirement account has to be done very carefully. Another common misconception when it comes to trusts are you have to be ultra wealthy to set up a trust. You have to be, a multimillionaire or something of that nature. And certainly those folks should have trust. But even those with more modest means, you have your house, maybe have your 401k, have life insurance policy, have bank accounts. Even if there's not huge dollar amounts in there, it may still be prudent to consider using a trust because the main benefit of a trust is to avoid probate, and probate can be a painful and expensive process for your beneficiaries. Even if you don't have a ton of assets, it's still the trust can still help avoid that process, and that's really one of the main benefits of the trust. And so even if you have modest means, a revocable trust is worth considering. And the fourth thing with trust is, like I mentioned before, they do avoid the probate process. Probate is in essence the process where um, upon passing, the judicial system wants to make sure that your wishes are taken care of, and so that's where generally a will would come into place. But a will is still used in the probate process. So the courts will review your will, they'll review all of your assets, all of that stuff. There's attorneys involved. They open up the credit, open up to creditors to come claim against your assets, and they publish it. It's all a very public thing of your assets and all of that. So that's what happens with a will. Even if you have a will, that still happens. So a trust, one of the main benefits, in my opinion, of a trust is that it avoids that probate process. Certainly, the attorney still needs to help out, but it's going to be a lot smoother, simpler process, and it's not a public process either because you're able to just shift assets into the name of the trust or shift them out into beneficiaries according to how the trust outlined. And so that's really one of the main benefits. Also, it can be set up to help a continued trust where the money can be held aside, especially if you have children that you're worried either they're spendthrifts or they're prone to sort of make bad decisions. You can set up the trust to help protect them for some period of time, where you would then have to choose a trustee though to help manage that process. And you can use either an individual, or sometimes there are even corporations that will do that. So hopefully that helps give you an idea of what a trust is, how it works, what are some considerations there, common misconceptions. Certainly there's a lot more to them than that. And I'm not an attorney. I just work with these things a lot as a financial advisor. And